Hello, and welcome to Clipping In. Wednesday, the 10th of July. The English summer is in full swing. And today I'm in the Pennines. I'm going over towards Marsden to climb Old Mount Road. Will there be a price to pay? Before that I'm going out to Marsden and I'm going to climb 3 turnpike roads from the 18th and 19th century. So there's a social history theme to this ride as we do Old Mount Road, and then the A62 Manchester Road. I don't think we're going to be lucky enough to have any super duper long distance views. I won't be pointing out distant landmarks today. So I'm toiling away, headwind, medium strength rain up towards Buckstones, and I suppose it's as good a time as any for a little bit of background to this ride. Have you ever noticed how we often measure distance not in units of distance like miles and kilometers, but in terms of time, the time it takes to bridge that distance between point A and point B. As an example, there's the classic estate agent trick where if somebody's looking at a house in Harrogate and they work in Leeds, the estate agent will say, "Oh yes sir, 30 minutes from Leeds city centre sir," and I think it's 18 to 20 miles that journey. And if the roads are quiet and you've got good driving conditions and a reliable car, you can do it in 30 minutes. But for the most part, when everybody's commuting, it's going to take longer than that. But the concept is 30 minutes rather than 18 miles. And to expand on that a little further, there have been times when I've got on a plane at Manchester Airport and flown 4,000 miles to the Midwest to Chicago in about 8 hours. And even if you factor in all the other checking in and waiting around and passport control and everything else, you can still, that is a journey of half a day. So we think of it, although it's 4,000 miles, we think of it as half a day. Whereas our parents, and certainly our grandparents, they wouldn't be able to get their heads around the idea of travelling that far to the Midwest of the USA in half a day, because the means of transport available to them in the 1930s, 1940s, it just wasn't. It had to be a ship and then inland transport. And I suppose what I'm thinking of today is how the white heat of the Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th centuries, how that revolutionized transport, travel speeds, and opened up a landscape so that traveling from Marsden towards Diggle and Manchester wasn't a day, or it wasn't something that you just couldn't do at winter. It became so routine that it was not worth thinking about, it wasn't worth mentioning. having passed through Denshaw and then Delph in a downpour, I'm now climbing towards Stanage Cutting on the A road. On the topic of roads, to the left is the Castleshaw Roman fort, or the site of it at least. And I had a ride out there last year on my gravel bike, when I had a gravel bike. I'll put a link up. It could be quite an interesting video if you didn't see that. The Romans obviously had a road, a military road, coming from Huddersfield, Slack, over the moors in front to Castleshaw. That was from the 1st century until they quit the island in the late 4th, early 5th century. This iteration of the A road cuts across the face of this hill and then eventually takes a direct line over the summit, Stanage Cutting. And there used to be an old coaching inn at the top that was open in the 80s. I remember that, called the Floating Light, which I thought was a superb name for an inn right on the top of the hill. The old Floating Light there on the left. Private residence now, but you can maybe see the size of the place. Passing through the Stanage Cutting, old coaching inn on the left, I think that is it called the Great Western, and then you can see another coaching inn directly ahead, just below that overlooking hill with the escarpment. The Romans had a signal station up there, and you can possibly see some ventilation shafts for the railway. It's interesting what I was saying about generations of transport, because as well as the 3 roads that sprang up, this one is the 1830s line, but as well as those 3 roads, there was a canal built as far as Marsden and one as far as Diggle in the late 18th century. And then initially they used pack horses to move from one canal to the other, but then eventually they built a through tunnel. And in those days the canal barges were horse drawn, so for the tunnel they had to do legging, where the men would lay on their backs and push the barge along with their legs on the roof of the tunnel. Those guys would have been very impressive cyclists, I think, given the opportunity. The railway came a little later in the 1840s and 50s with another impressive bit of tunnel work. We've just passed the air shafts. Right, dropping down to Marsden now. Where were the spiders? So the oldest of the 3 roads is the one that goes via Old Mount Road. There's a car just coming out. I remember this being a bit of a beast. Got some nice low gears on. Ah, yeah, okay. I've not been up here for a very long time, over 10 years, and I was 30 odd pounds lighter with probably 100 watts more power. So 34, 32, here we go. No chances on this, bit greasy. So I'm staying seated. primary architect behind this in the 1780s, 90s was Blind Jack of Knaresborough. The problem with this, it was too steep for a lot of horse-drawn traffic, big coaches, heavy carts, and I think 10-15 years later they put Mount Road in, slightly different line, quite a bit easier. Right, get a bit of a breather. It kicks again, but nothing like that first ramp. I think in the old days I had a 39.23 or a 39.25 probably. I would have preferred a nice warm dry day. I want everything, eh? Jam on it. Another little kick before it joins in with Mount Road. I can hear cars on that, so we're not far off. So joined up now with Mount Road, quite a fierce headwind and drizzle. I'm going to reconnect with the A62, the 1830s Turnpike Road, drop back to Marsden and then climb Mount Road. Round the wonky roundabout, and now this is Mount Road, which was plugged in about 10 to 15 years after Old Mount Road. You can see from the gradients there's nothing as prohibitive as that first slope of Old Mount Road. Although I might not say that if I was a 19th century horse pulling a huge coach. The wind can play more of a part on this road. Old Mount Road is more sheltered, so it's you and the gradient, whereas here I've got a headwind at the moment, plus a little bit of a gradient. And still we keep ticking away. Still climbing, but up on the right you might be able to see dry stone wall with some sheep and a road sign near there. That's where Old Mount Road comes in. You can see the sign there. get a little breather soon, and then join back A62, and I'll start heading back the way I came out. That hill that I mentioned with the Roman beacon and signalling station is up there on the right. Cheeky wind. It's possible here to see an older iteration of this road on the right. Fascinating, these layers of history. Grains Road up to Grains Bar. Brightening up a little bit now, typically. I've ridden 42 miles. I passed through Denshaw and climbing my old friend the Buckstones again. This ride's going to be 58, 59 I think, but it's been a good one. Shame about the weather, but a bit of rain doesn't have to spoil the fun, does it? Signing off time, 58, 59 miles, lots of climbing, great ride, weather doesn't matter, and well, it's cost me a fortune in tolls, 1 and 4pence I think, good grief. So it only leaves me to say, as usual, that's all for this edition of Clipping In. See you very soon, back out on the Yorkshire roads. Bye bye.